So this demo is really looking at how you might take your Rhino geometry and transmit it to, or prepare it to be laser cut. And for laser cutting, which is essentially a laser which will burn through some sheet material, maybe it's chipboard or Bristol paper, and will cut out, the shapes that you give it, and you're able to then fold those back up, as a physical artifact. I'll start here with the simple example of a box, and all the sides are planar or flat, and so it makes it fairly straightforward to unroll it manually just using the rotate 3D command. So let's go through that process. I'll turn off the gumball here for a second. So here's the cube, type in explode, and I basically want to rotate down all of these individual faces. So I'll start with this one, type in rotate 3D, and I have my end snap on so that I can click on these corners, and holding shift will enable ortho, which is good to kind of ensure that each of the faces is perfectly flat on the C-plane, which is important. So let's quickly do these, holding shift to make sure ortho is on. These last two faces, I'm going to select both of them together, and that's so that I can keep these edges joined. So that's step one, and here's step two. So you have to do a little bit of thinking through ahead of time on how you want to rotate them down. All right, so everything's nice and flat. We'll just continue here onto step two, and we're going to use the make 2D command. And this is the same one we used for the floor plans, which we saw in the previous module. Make 2D. Here I have current C-plane on, which is important, so it's perfectly flat. And I do not have group output on. I want these kind of as separate lines. We don't have any hidden lines, so that's really not relevant. So we'll just click OK. And you can see here that that's created a 2D version of this outline. And let's just see here, these are each individual lines, which is good. So now what we're concerned with is, for the laser cutter, is typically we'll have, two generally layers, and these are one layer is for cutting, and so the laser will cut fully through the material, and another layer is for scoring. So this is a score, which is a convenient fold line. Let's do this. I'm going to select everything, and usually I'll start with the cut layer first. Oh wait, why is this not changing? Just check here. Okay, my display color, I want to make sure that that's by layer. All right, that looks good, better. And then just come back and select the other lines that I want to put on the score layer. Okay, and so this would be ready to laser cut, and you'll have to kind of research and try it out on an actual laser cutter machine possibly, to go through those next steps. Here I'm just demonstrating how you might model it. All right, so that was producing it manually. There's another command which will automate a fair amount of it, but it kind of depends on the geometry that you have. So here we have a polygonal kind of boulder. Each of these faces is perfectly flat, and that's necessary for the unroll surf command. So I'll select this. It's a single object, and we can type in unroll surf. And we have a couple options here. You might practice with enabling or disabling some of these. Let's see the one I'm going to use. Explode equals no, so that's going to keep all the pieces together. And I'll choose labels equals yes, so explode no, labels yes. And so it'll tag them. It's going to add a dot label so that I can keep track of where each face is. So no label, explode no, labels yes, hit enter, and you can see what it produced. So at the origin is where it flattened it, and it labeled with these text dots on both the flattened version and the 3D version. So you could, take a look and, for example, let's take a look at maybe the top face. So those edges for the top face are 0, 8, 5, and 3 in clockwise direction. So 0, 8, 5, and 3. We can see here that the top face is this one. And we can see the tags 0, 8, 5, and 3 in clockwise direction. And so that gets dropped in at the origin, and we're just going to move it over here. And now we'll proceed with similar kind of process what we did over here, which was to explode. Kind of separate all those surfaces out. Make 2D. Same options here. Click OK. And move those here. Alright, so here are these individual lines. And I'm going to quickly get rid of these dot objects by typing in SEL dot. Selects all dot objects and then hit delete. Just kind of clean things up a little bit. And same process as before. I'm going to put these on the cut layer. For some reason the display color, it's not coming up by layer, but this is what I want. And here I can just select all the trim lines and put those on that layer. So that's that process. So the unroll surf is a really great one, but you don't really have control over which edges are connected. So if they're not what you intend, you may have to kind of go in and rearrange some things. So for example, let's see, maybe orient, instead of it connected on this edge, maybe I want it connected to this edge. And so you have some agency in how these things unfold. But what Rhino does for you is flatten them conveniently. All right, I guess let's just park this over here. This space was for that example. So what can you unroll? You can unroll things, geometry that is developable, meaning it has single curvature. So things like a cylinder or flat surfaces are things with only one direction of curvature, but things like a sphere is doubly curved, and that cannot be unrolled. Let's take a look at this example. This was cut from from a cylinder. I'm just going to type in untrim just to visualize that. So untrim, and I'm clicking on this edge. You can see this is the original surface that it was created from. So undo that. And then cylinders were added and kind of cut out of that shape. But if I want to then unroll it, I can select the surface, type unroll surf, enter. It's thinking. Well, there's a little bit more geometry, so you have to wait a second. But that's going to show up at the origin, and then we'll kind of follow that same process of putting the line work on the correct layers. So here that's completed. Come over here. You can see there's lots of dots. You don't really need them. So SEL dot, delete. Here's my single surface. Let's bring that over here, because this was also just a single surface. And in this case, the laser cut template we need is really just all the kind of borders. Let's type in make 2D. Click OK. And so that'll retrace all the borders for all those circles and the overall border for the shape of this that shape. And all of that geometry should then be put on the cut layer. Let's make sure that that is by layer. Okay, so that you could go and laser cut. One more example here with another boulder with part of a cylinder booleaned out of it. That's a viable candidate for the unroll surf. And there, that was actually pretty quick. So over here. And so part of this can be, once you laser cut it and so forth, you would have to curl the curved part of that template, and that should all fit together. All right, so let's see here. SEL dot delete, explode, and make. Okay. Actually, I see that there's a little bit of overlap. So see that actually, I believe this is the curved piece. For whatever reason, it was overlaid, so I'm going to move it separately. And let's do make 2D. Okay, so this is everything we need. Put that on the laser cut layer by layer, and then these pieces are the ones that would go on the score layer. Okay, and that could be cut as well. Let's bring that over here. All right, so Unroll Surf, really terrific one. Unroll Surf does not work on the doubly curved geometry, so when I click here, unrolling surface will produce inaccurate results, and yet when I do it, nothing is produced, so it really doesn't like that. Same thing here with this partial sphere.